Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our breakout session. This is on OTAs, online travel agents. Now, if the mood of the conference so far is anything to go by, I think I can answer the question that is asked in the blurb in our panel session, which is it time to hang up the gloves? And so far I would say, no, not nearly. But let's see what our panelists have to say. And to start us off, what I'm going to do is just simply to ask each of my panelists to say who they are and what they do in just 1 minute. So if we start at the far end, actually. Tim, please.
Good morning. Tim Roberts, CEO of HC Integrated Technologies. And we build systems for different sectors. And obviously we built a system for the hotel sector to be able to centralize and append data for direct contact. So that's what the company does.
Okay, thank you. Tim?
I'm Julie Fawcett. I'm Managing Director of Cubic Hotels, which is a small startup chain, private equity backed, most famous for its bizarre aluminium bathrooms. Feel free to come and try one day.
And I'm Jason Grist. I'm the area manager for Booking.com in the UK. For those of you who don't know what Booking.com is, it's a marketing platform, and it is 20 years old next year, believe it or not, which makes me feel very old. And I think the rest.
What's your market cap? 64 billion, is it?
Price lines, something like that.
Yeah.
I'm Brian Reeves of GoPar Digital. We work in demand optimization for hotels, so our work straddles digital marketing, distribution, revenue management. We work both with brand.com optimization and also with OTAs.
Thank you. Very succinct. Great stuff. Before I get into my questions, I want to make this as interactive as possible. We're a relatively tight group, so let's engage and ask the questions you want to ask. But Julie, I'd like to start with you in terms of OTAs. Your view in terms of are they an essential part of the marketing mix, and how much should they be in terms of proportion?
Yeah, so I think without sort of wanting to kind of sound disloyal, I actually do think OTAs are an essential part of the marketing mix in a yield-driven or yield management, digitally driven world. And I've really got two reasons for that. One is that it's not feasible for even substantial change to market internationally in this globe-trotting market in as cost-effective as we can via the OTA. And secondly, if we want the maximum amount of demand in our demand pipeline, we need the breadth of input that the OTAs give us. That's not to say that I love them. I think it's a frenemy relationship, and that there's plenty of things that we can and should be doing to mitigate the kind of impact on the business.
And in terms of that Cubic, how much are you using them? What proportion of your sales are they?
Currently they're 40% of the mix, and we think we can get it to 30%. That's after about 20 months of trading, though. Right, so the ambition is very much to decrease it and get more direct booking? Yeah. Okay. Brian, I'd like to come to you now, ask you that same question in terms of the role of the OTA, and are they essential? Do you have to use an OTA?
I think you do. I think the first thing to say is that there are different types of OTAs. I think there are OTAs that do work that is demand generative. So people like Travelzoo or Secret Escapes, that they do work that results in more people staying in a given area or staying with a given hotel group. And then you've got OTAs like Booking.com or Expedia, who are really tapping into demand that's already there. In any case, and I think Julie's point is also well made in terms of access to markets, that from a digital marketing standpoint would be really difficult, if not impossible, to get at as an individual hotel. The challenge is that hotels don't really know how to optimize OTAs the way they should, and it's still really one-dimensional in that people move rates. So you're moving your rates up and down, or you're adding promotions to try and stimulate demand, and there's an awful lot more to the channels than that. So what we try and do, and what we try and advise hotels to do, is to take a net rate perspective on it, and we're still burdened with RevPAR, which we need to kind of disabuse ourselves of, really, and get down to the cost of business and see, okay, well, what OTAs should fit in the mix and how. And I think it's only when you come at it from that perspective that the right mix and the right balance of OTAs will make sense. But it needs to be better understood. We're bashing Booking.com, I suppose, particularly for many years now. And in actual fact, there's a lot you can do to optimize the channel without either decreasing your rate or just adding commission to it. So, and I think second to that, Booking.com are actually educating hotels on how to perform well online, and we're kind of ignoring those lessons. So particularly from a conversion optimization perspective, the biggest misconception of hotels is that Booking.com have just got too big a marketing budget. They've got too much money to spend. And that's not true. Their advertising cost per room night sold is ridiculously low. There isn't a hotel that we work with that couldn't afford to spend it. The reason that they perform so well is that conversion rate is so high. So they can afford to do a myriad of different marketing activities. And it just performs well. But that point is really central to explaining their dominance. And it's a lesson that hotels thus far have just failed to learn and execute on.
Mm-hmm. Julie said 40% of her sales, aiming for 30%. In your view, what percentage is it a problem once OTAs? What's the threshold at which it starts becoming an issue?
I really think it's more about the net revenue targets. Hotels need to moving to a net revenue target as opposed to RevPAR targets. And I think once you do that, there isn't really a right answer to what's the right percentage of mix. It really needs to be built from the ground up. It needs to be built from the cost per occupied room right up to understanding what channels, at what cost, at what rate make sense or don't make sense. And if you look at last minute rooms, you look at distressed inventory that you can shift, of course you should be taking that once the rate point is above, once it gives you a decent GOP on the sales. So I don't think there's a right answer to the mix. I think it will largely depend on where the hotel is, what kind of market, what kind of demand generators there are. So the Lake District is going to be completely different to London, for example, in terms of how you'd use OTAs and the choice of OTAs that you would work with.
Okay, Tim, I'd like to come to you on this mix issue. And I see you nodding there. You're going to agree with Brian, I think. It depends is the answer I'm going to get. But can you give me some specific examples? Let's look, if you're a resort property, if you're a Lake District property, for example, what's the kind of mix you anticipate there? And if you're in an urban environment, what is the sort of mix you anticipate there?
Well, I come from a point of view of I'm a hotel. I'd want to get the mix as low as I could. Right. So I'd want to be aiming for maybe utilising the OTAs, using them and utilising them. You can't do without them. In another world, eBay and Amazon, you can't do without them, but you operate with them. But you're looking at your own direct traffic. You're looking at trying to get to that guest. Big data, big love. I'm going to use that. I love that phrase. Because if you understand your guest, whether it's in the Lake District, and you have that relationship, and you understand that they like walking, or they like rowing, or whatever it might be, you've got then offers, and you've got to entice them back into your hotel. If they've had a fantastic experience, they're going to come back. So I think I agree with Brian, because how do you put a rate on a percentage? It has to come down about what's returning. And you've got loads of different vehicles to go to that customer. You have in terms of the Silver Service, they're now fully engrossed on Facebook. My kids, well, they've moved on. They're Instagram. They're somewhere else. Yeah. So it's about looking at how do we get and target to direct. Yeah. So I'd be aiming for the lowest percentage possible. Now, in London, again, that's where, you use your rate. And if you've got stress, you've got to get rid of the rooms, then obviously then you pull the levers and Booking.com, Expedia, whoever, from an OTA point of view. But if you know what's going on in London in terms of events, Fashion Week, or the World Rugby Cup, rugby, you can then direct target, within your own guest profile, if you understand it and know it, and what their interests are. Now, we are, I suspect there's a lot of people in the room which are pretty miles away from that concept, right. And understanding your data.
Okay, Jason.
Or guess.
Yeah, Jason, let's come to you. Okay, so we've heard from 2 technology providers and a hotelier. They all want to get people to book direct. Now, here you are, the biggest OTA in Europe. This is a bit of an issue in terms of your business if everybody starts booking direct. Are you worried by that?
Not really. I don't think that's something that keeps us up every night. I think we focus on what we focus on, which is keeping customers happy. And sadly, I'm going to agree with almost everything that's gone past so far, because it's really important that each property is able to manage its direct channels as well as it can, and Booking has always been very supportive of hotels to try and achieve that goal. When we originally set the company up, it was about making sure people were able to market that property to the widest possible audience. But what I find interesting is that people put all OTAs in the same pot, and I think that's wrong to do that. I think you have to understand the value that OTAs add, individually. And I think that, that you should be able to make that choice and improve your business, as Julie just said, by being able to, for example, focus on booking for international customers. And so for me, it's more a question of these days, booking has become very big. Yes, of course it has. It's a big player in Europe. It's a big player worldwide. But what we've done is we've focused on using our scale to understand what customers really want. And I think that we are slightly obsessed with customers. I like to think that my job and the team on the ground in outside of Amsterdam focus a lot on partners these days, much more than we would have done before. But the focus has got to be following the customer. And I think that if you understand the value of what booking brings, you understand the fact that we're really just making sure we follow that customer and deliver on that experience. And I think that can only be good for hotels. Whether or not that adds value to your business, you have to make that call. So really, in terms of this book direct, you think some might succeed at it, but overall there's enough space in that marketplace that you're going to be able to carry on and keep growing? Because obviously at the moment, while you're valued as you are valued, which is incredibly highly, much more highly rated than hotel companies, is because you have a growth trajectory. You still believe you can maintain that growth trajectory, clearly, despite all the efforts of the direct booking? Well, I think the group Priceline is looking to increase its value by looking at different growth areas. The company needs to continue to grow. But this is not specifically about booking, it's about other OTAs as well.
Sure,
and of course, they will all be looking to grow further. The question is what value they actually add. And I would say that within the sort of sphere of OTAs, you have to question whether you get value for money. And I think one of the things that we've done extremely well is localize our business to get much closer to properties. And we now have offices almost opposite here in Manchester. We have Bristol open, Edinburgh, Dublin, and London. We have 2 customer services offices in the UK as well. And we've become very, very local. We've become very close to partners. We listen to them, and to the point I think Brian was making, we have an entire team of people who go out on the road and advise properties and use that scale to understand how they can perform on our website. And there's never any pressure at all, going back to the reason why booking existed in the first place, which was a marketing platform. We're there to mirror the product that you have as a hotel. You may not see it that way, but that's how it started 20 years ago, and that's how it continues to operate, as a mirror of what you have. We drive the traffic, you decide your prices and availability, and that's how it continues to work. And if that is offering value for money at the commission you pay, we'll continue to be keeping up our part of the bargain.
Okay. I'd like to come to the 2 technology providers here and ask you a similar sort of question in terms of, I was asking Jason there that how he I think Priceline believe and Expedia believe they can actually see off the hotels and they're going to carry on winning. They are investing so much. They're investing $500 million each in technology. Now, if you go to the Amsterdam HQ of Booking, you'll see a little room where they've got all sorts of guinea pigs in there, and they're all, they're monitoring these customers, and they're looking at them, and they're watching them where they click and how they click, what they click on, and they're making these little micro changes, to typeface as to where they're locating the pictures. I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing in terms of that. There's no way hotel groups can compete with that level of investment is there. So how can you actually level the playing field?
Right. There is technology out there that a hotel can use, can go in monthly subscription that brings in data. I think the first starting point is, well, does the hotel or the hotel group want to engage and actually want to invest in actually taking back the ownership of their guest? And if you've got an answer that says yes, and then they're willing to put a small micro team around that, we can provide the technology, we can provide the wisdom. Obviously, these guys have invested millions of pounds in technology and understanding the guests, and like you just said there, the hot spots and typefaces and landing pages and everything that Brian and myself get involved with in terms of you've got to land the person. If someone's interested in Fashion Week, then don't land them on just a hotel page. Let's land them on a fashion page, which is talking about Fashion Week and booking and et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there is the technology out there. I would start though first, which is to actually I would get really a centralization of what do you have right now, Mr. Hotelier. You know, what is in your PMS? What is in your Wi-Fi? What is in maybe old systems, Sage, financial systems, whatever? That's all data. Yeah. So again, it's not about suffocating a business through, you know, a data and like, oh God, it's just data. No, everything has a meaning. This person exists. Yeah, you can't have, you know, 25,000 records in a PMS system and 745 mobiles. That's crazy, right? If we went to Booking.com and said, right, how many people you have, whatever millions that is, and how many mobiles do you have? Right? Well, they would say virtually 99%, probably. Now, why? Because that's a great way of, again, communicating. And it's not about spam texting or spam emails. That's about sending an appropriate message to that person's interest that is going to get them you know, converting, talking. Right? So that's where the investment is not just about the technology and the systems. It's also about putting the team behind and around that. Right, in terms of developing that website, developing your messaging, those landing pages, them text messages, those emails. It's not just about blanket out 10,000. It's just like in the old days going around 10,000 leaflets and putting it out there. Well, what's going to happen? Well, 9,770 of them go straight in the bin. You might be lucky, throw so much at the wall and something that sticks. You've now got vehicles to talk to people. Right? Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Wherever these people are, which is your market, because first off, you identify within your own base, where are these people? You know, who are they? Can we get more information?
But as a hotelier, how have you got the resources to do that? I mean, realistically.
I can answer that.
Go on, Julie.
So a consistent metric and a simple metric that we look at is, are we converting better on our own channel than we are on Booking.com in this instance? Everyone can do that every single day. And we consistently are. And in addition to that, our revenue manager is challenged with having a relationship with Booking.com to ensure that we continue to convert highly, because we know that that's how we're going to make that channel work for us. So we already make that channel work high, and then we make our own channel work better. And we can do that really, really simply. It's not, there isn't a technological barrier to doing that. And I think there's a couple of things that we need to understand that. I come from an e-commerce background, and there's a fantastic thing that happens in hotels, which is that, and this is going to really surprise you, okay? I want you all to be sitting down. You talk to the guest. I know. Who knew? And you actually can talk to them. You can get their email or their...
Yeah, of course you can.
You can potentially encourage them to come back to your website. There's lots that you can do. And the e-commerce guys, they'll call that growth hacking. It's really like simple stuff. And it doesn't have to be about banks of A/B testers sitting in a laboratory in Amsterdam. It's about saying to yourself, have I got good pictures? Does my booking engine work? Am I taking the right payment methods? Have I maybe done a couple of language translations? All of this is in the bounds of okay for most people. That, I promise you, will deliver you a good converting website.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So when you're saying you're converting more, so visitors, you convert more people who come to your website and people who go to the Booking website looking at your specific property is what you're saying?
Yeah, so traffic to sales, conversion of traffic to sales, we consistently convert higher on our own site than on Booking.com. And I would expect that to be the case. I'd expect a much more qualified customer to come to my site than to go to Booking.com. And if it's lower, go and do some simple things to your site.
Well, most hoteliers have an appalling conversion rate, Brian, don't they?
Yeah, pretty low. And I think the point you started with the degree of multivariate testing that's going on within Booking.com, the answer is no. Hotels and hotel groups will never be able to afford that level of multivariate improvement. But I think the bigger points are more, on one level, more on kind of a consumer psychology level. Where Booking.com do really, really well is when someone goes to the Booking.com website and they're looking, it's very price-oriented. It's price, it's conversion, it's the value proposition. And the way Booking.com present that, and the way hotels present it, is really nothing to do with multivariate testing. It's just understanding how you sell online. So a hotel will, we're very soft in hospitality. We're very soft when it comes to selling. And Booking.com are taking that hard-line retail approach. So you go to a hotel website and you ask about availability, and we've got a double room and it's £200 for tonight. And Booking.com's response to exactly the same query is, it was 250, now it's 200. There's only 3 left. The last one was booked 10 minutes ago. prices in London are going up in your date, you need to secure it now. You can do it in 2 minutes. We're not going to take credit card details if it's a last minute booking. It's sales, sales, sales. The second point is that rate will always be the greatest conversion determinant. And Booking.com are sitting on some really big data in terms of understanding your rate relative to what's going on in the market on that date. And hotels are still stuck looking at STO reports that you've been looking at for the last 5 years. That's not your competitive set. Your competitive set is changing on a daily basis. As hotels move their rates, they're moving in and out of your competitive set. And it becomes very dynamic. So how you price on any given date needs to be looked at in a much broader context. And that's a trick that's being missed by hotels. But with the data that Booking.com are sitting on, it's something they can exploit. So when you look at their ranking day to day, your hotel moves up and down the Booking.com ranking, irrespective of commission. It's moving on the basis of rate and what your forecasted conversion is going to be, something these guys can see very well. So you don't need to get into the micro-level details, the multivariate testing that goes on within the laboratory in Amsterdam. You need to just kind of stand back and look at the basics, look at the big things. And as Julie quite rightly said, just study that on a day-to-day basis, look at what your conversion is compared to Booking.com. And then try and take the lessons. There's so many lessons. And so what we spend a lot of our time doing is just trying to surface the lessons that Booking.com are actually giving to hotels. But hotels are very, very slow to execute on. So, yeah, I'd have a very positive look at where hotels can go from here. But right now, these guys are stealing the show.
I'd like to come back to Jason, really, on this commoditization point. I mean, since, you guys popped up on the scene 20 years ago, that has been the fear. Everybody's worried about that. That what you're going to do is commoditize the industry. Is that what you're doing?
No, I don't think it is what we're doing. I do agree with a lot of things Brian's saying. I mean, I have to go back again, as we always do, to the fact that we just follow the customer. I mean, we're talking about guinea pigs. So there's not many guinea pigs in Amsterdam, but there is a big team of people who are looking at data, using that data. And we're doing hundreds of A/B variant testing on the website, hundreds of tests every single day. And that's how this website, which often people even say to me, it's not the most attractive website, is it? And it's not about it being the most attractive website. Like you say, it isn't winning a beauty contest. It's about converting, because customers told us every time that little block down there needs to be a darker shade of yellow. It's literally down to that nth degree. And that's what we do every day. So I think that the customer focus is why our business is where it's at, is why our website is where it's at. The entire business is based on an ROI model, which is basically about us converting lookers to bookers. So our conversion on the website is very much about people who visit your hotel page who then go on to book. It's that simple. So I would go back to the point Brian was making about pricing. Pricing doesn't explicitly determine your ranking on Booking.com. There are many factors within the algorithm, but it's not specifically pricing. It's about, so for example, if you're just the cheapest, you don't just go to the top. It's to do with availability, principally to do with availability when people are looking at the site. There's many other aspects to it, right? But what's interesting is, and we've just touched on it a little bit, was that the tools that are now available, particularly to hotels, Booking's a very broad church now. It's not just about hotels. It's about B&Bs, 30,000 properties in the UK, 10,000 of them are holiday homes. Look at London, 2,500 properties we operate in London, a quarter of them are apartments. So we're a very broad church, but what we have got, and what hotels are now starting to use, are these amazing tools. We have, in many properties, we've launched already a performance tab which shows you exactly how we see your position currently versus competitors. And when we say competitors, I can't imagine how many times I've had that conversation with hotels about competitive set. And hoteliers look at me and say, no, that's not my competitive set. And I think it's very difficult to get your head around the fact that your competitive set on Booking is people who have been looking at your property and then going on to look at other properties, and vice versa. And we now offer advice on how well priced you are against competitors, rather than dictating you need to be up there or down there. And that's just another one of the things that we're doing.
Do you make that available on a dynamic basis, or is that just sort of a report?
No, it's a permanent. It's part of many developments that we continue to offer, because we believe it's our duty on the partner side of the business to continue to offer value for money. And that's the point I was making earlier on. When you choose an OTA and you choose what they do, Booking is always looking to add value to the partners, always looking to find new ways of increasing growth for each partner through different products and different services and different tools. That's the way we believe we can add value. Going back to the data point we were talking about before, we use it and we use it well, and it's there for properties to look at. And even if you don't want to work with Booking.com, and we're probably the most flexible OTA out there, if you want to, I mean, if it's that extreme, you can leave in 2 weeks if you want to. But most importantly, we have an on-off tap on availability, which is there, and it's your choice whether you use it or not. But in the meantime, there are so many different tools you can now use to decide where to place your business, when to place your business, and those things. I do agree. It's taken us a long time to get out there and explain those things to properties, but our account management team everywhere now are doing that on a daily basis, and those that look at it and engage are using it and improving. But things, just be really one point about content, even if you don't work with us, you can at least steal the ideas on Booking.com's website. I mean, things like content are so important. You might not be able to translate into 42 languages, but you can at least understand the value of content on our website and the fact that actually you have some good bathroom pictures. They convert your website even better. Silly little things like that, which you can pick up for free from account managers, which we know and we pass on and mean that eventually you're converting better.
From your point of view, it was interesting you're raising this thing about being able to turn you on and turn you off. But as a business, it doesn't make commercial sense for you to actually put people who are turning you off on a regular basis and are not doing a lot of business through you, to put them higher up the rankings, does it? So you're going to favour, on your algorithms, which you closely guard, they're going to favour the people you're doing the most business with.
Yeah, I don't know, for a start, I had absolutely no idea what the algorithm is. No one's ever told me. No, it's not. What we know is the main components of the algorithm. And Booking has always championed the customer. And so for us, the customer is happy when those properties are regularly available with good pricing and they convert. Those properties get a boost in the ranking, and then they'll find themselves higher up the ranking than other properties. Properties who don't want to connect that often still get access to customers, but they'll get access to less customers. The top of the website in London is enormous. At the bottom, it isn't so big, but I can assure you that there's a lot of properties in London that are down the bottom of those 2,500 hotels who are still doing good business and are able to opt in or opt out. And I think that's the beauty of Booking, is that you are able to turn on and turn off.
Just carrying on with this commoditisation or risk of commoditisation, a critical bit of that is actually who's owning the guest relationship, and how hotels are working with the guest if they're delivered through an OTA, for example. Julie, some thoughts from you on that?
Yeah, so this is where I probably, I'm less comfortable with the relationship with the OTAs. We are the provider of the service, you're the marketing vessel. We need the customer data sent through. To say that it's for security reasons is a bit bizarre. You're perfectly comfortable passing the credit card details.
So this is we haven't stated this, but no longer do you get the email address of the guest coming through.
Yeah. Yeah, so the email addresses aren't being passed. That all said, there's ways around it. It just makes it slightly more awkward for the guests. For us, we're trying to have a nice, smooth guest experience. We don't really want them to spend more time at the check-in than they have to. That is customer bad. So if we have to start harvesting those email addresses at check-in, customer bad. We'd much rather you just gave it to us. We can get it another way anyway. They're going to turn up.
But I agree. I mean, you're going to. The point is, they are going to be in front of you in the property, and you can take whatever you like from them. And let's be really clear about the email business. I know for a lot of people, they didn't like the fact that we took the email away. But the reality is, it was done for security, and you are still able to deliver or communicate with customers via the extranet using the same email address, but obviously encrypted. I just want to go back to that point about security, and that really is central to everything we do. Is there are a lot of very big, nasty crime syndicates out there, and we've made the headlines several times because of it. So have other companies as well. This is something that affects all companies, all e-commerce companies, and yes, we've been affected like they have as well. And whether or not you believe that this is done for security, I can assure you it is, because what we want to do primarily is make sure all the customer data, so our consumers and our partners, are fully protected, and we make no apology for that.
Just sticking with this customer data piece in terms of what's being collected, Tim, I mean, where are hoteliers missing the biggest tricks in terms of what they're not collecting?
Well, I mean, you could go right to the basics. I'm sure that there's hotels that collect every bit of information they can in terms of email and mobile and addresses and everything, but you can also look at some data sets which basically have a name. Well, you collect a name, so how's that going to help you, right? Now, like you said, there's ways round because we have systems that can then draw, and actually from a name and an address, we can actually then pick up insights in terms of mobiles and emails, etc. So I think where you've got to get back to basics to start with, because let's get the basics right, foundations, and then start to, again, utilising technology. Because you're absolutely right. Speak to the guest, but that's the person that's coming in. That's the person you've got to satisfy. That's the person you want coming back. So find out more about them. And you've got, where hotels have engaged with Facebook, they've got whatever, hundreds of thousands of likes, hopefully. That's people which have liked the hotel, they've liked that page. They might not have stayed yet. Well, start talking to them, and start to collect their interest in what they want to come and visit, or what they would do, or what they did, when they come into the hotel. What was the kind of activities they did? It's about understand, for me, whether it's the hotel industry or any other, understand in another world customer, in this world guest, and understand more about them and collect what you can. Now, like you said, when I stay in a lot of hotels, it's shocking. I turn up and I have to re-register. I've stayed in this one hotel loads of times, business, and I have to re-register. I have to fill in another goddamn form.
Go stay in another hotel.
I am.
Yeah.
All right. But it's a joke. Yeah, it's a joke. Again with collection, they know basically as well from if I've hooked in via the Wi-Fi and I've hooked in via Facebook or whatever, they have my interests. I love golf and this, that, and the other. Well, start to use that data. Start to understand. Let's get Mr. Roberts back. We're going to have a special weekend away at the Marriott, Forest of Arden, whatever it might be. It's a brand. But do you know what I mean?
Yeah. As it's infuriating, I have to say it's not just hoteliers. When I go to Google's HQ, I arrive, I go to the desk, which is a shared office. I have to give my name and details in at that desk, and when I arrive on the Google floor, I have to do the same damn process again. And then they should know better, I think. But this data utilisation, Brian, it's what you do with it. It's not just a collecting of it, is it?
Yeah, it is, and I think people are put off by the idea of big data and getting into huge projects and a lot of capex to try and aggregate all of the data that exists on the customer, on your marketing and distribution activity and your revenue management. I think there's some very simple, quick wins. The biggest of which is to take the basics of marketing and revenue management and put them together. Because we've spoken a lot already about conversion and the role that price plays in that. And hotels are almost unique in that pricing is not a function of marketing. Like it almost always is in other businesses, because it's one of the key things that drives business, is how you move price. So what we have is a marketing team responsible for the generation of demand, where the conversion of that demand is largely going to come back to the revenue team in terms of how they're setting their pricing. That conversation is still siloed. The departments are siloed, the data is still siloed within the hotel, and that needs to become part of the same conversation. And whilst you're doing it, I think the second obvious thing is to start to get some net revenue data. Hotels are, I wouldn't say blind to it, but it's an arduous task still to try and get at the cost of sale, whether that's commission, whether it's rate reduction, whether it's discounts that are added, but to try and bring those basics together and to form a conversation which is more about demand management than about marketing or distribution or e-commerce or revenue management. It's all part of the same focus. I think the minute we sit our teams down and say, okay, how are we performing from a net revenue perspective? And you understand everyone's role far more coherently in that kind of a context. And it's just, for me, that's the quick win. It's the obvious thing to do. And I think thereafter, yes, I think the points that Tim and Julie have made in terms of going after guest information, starting to profile, starting to market segment in a more intelligent way are all things that we can harness. But I do think there's more basic things to be done in the first instance.
Great. I'd like to open it up to the floor if you've got any questions out there. There's one down the front here, please. If you just say who you are and where you're from.
Tim Rumney from the Best Western Plus Castle Green Hotel in Kendal. I'm going to try and ask the same question as yesterday to our friend from Expedia. I don't think I got a straight answer. Just to give you a little bit of context, we're a 100-bedroom hotel. The only OTA we work with is Booking.com. And they represent probably 20% of our book business. And our commissions now as a percentage of accommodation are up at 10.5%. And without doubt, Booking.com produce a lot of business for us at a good rate. What I was trying to get an answer to yesterday was, on a point of principle, why the OTAs will not allow an independent hotel to price according to the cost of sale on their own website. Because if the argument is that the guest experience is very good, which it is with Booking.com, shouldn't the customer be prepared to pay a premium for that experience? And as an independent operator with a booking engine and a website that can't compete, shouldn't I be allowed to price my product according to the cost that attaches to it for me? And we do work very hard to try and convert customers to direct bookers. And one of the ways that I do that is that I speak to my customers, and they're horrified when they understand that we pay a commission rate of 18% for business through Booking.com. And if the answer to the question is, well, we do that because we can do that, the follow-up question would be, if we go down the road of 3 countries in Europe and price parity becomes illegal, what, in the view of the panel, will the OTAs then do?
Interesting. Well, we had a discussion about that yesterday afternoon in terms of price parity, and despite what the IHG gentleman said, the reality is price parity was introduced by hoteliers. It was a request by hoteliers because what happened in the 9/11 situation, the merchant model whereby the OTAs contracted a whole bunch of room nights from the hoteliers, they were being sold on for 30, 40, 50% plus commissions, and hoteliers tried desperately to get control back of their inventory. And part of that getting control back of the inventory was to have price parity so that their rooms couldn't be undersold. That was the initial issue. Now we've moved to a point here in terms of price parity. It's suddenly seen as something which the nasty OTAs have foisted on the industry, which I don't think it is. But Jason, can I ask you to come in?
Can I just go back to the question, just to work out what you were trying to say is, should I be able to, with the commission that I'm paying to Booking.com, should I be able to sell on a cheaper rate on my own website? Correct. Okay. I think what we've seen in the last couple of months is a lot of changes around Europe, and changes which half have been bought by regulatory bodies we had nothing to do with, and half have been brought on by ourselves by introducing what we call a narrow MFN. I have a very, very simple answer to this. Booking has been operating for 20 years as a marketing platform, allowing properties, probably the only company to allow properties to set their own pricing structure and add availability as and when they wanted to. And I think the one thing we wanted from the very beginning was that we act as this mirror of a property. We drive the traffic, we have to be a mirror. And I think I'll be very frank in saying that if we got to a situation where we were allowing properties on our website, particularly those who take a lot of our traffic from the very, very top, and I understand you're in the preferred program, we effectively wouldn't have a business anymore. So I cannot see the argument that says that on Booking.com, and I'm not talking for other OTAs here because I can't do that, but I can talk for Booking in saying that if you want us to drive this traffic, and we drive a lot of traffic, it's very important that we have price parity with your own website, because our business would end up just delivering free marketing for you and we wouldn't make any money. Now, I don't think that's a very sensible approach for us to take. It isn't an approach we'll take. But what we try and do is make sure that we continue to deliver value for money for the commission we charge. And I have to say, probably because I work for Booking.com, that I genuinely believe that whether you pay 15 or you pay 18 for your standard or your preferred program, when you consider the things that are available to you in terms of advice, support, tools, knowledge, I think it's extremely good value for money. And I find it extraordinary how we keep coming back to this conversation about value for money, because I think it is delivering on Booking in that respect. And that's why I think it's really important to go back to your point, was that it will not work for us, and it will not work for you, and it will not work for our customers if we allow cheaper rates on brand.com. I hope that answers the question. Well, pleasure. But I have to be honest. We don't have anything to hide. We don't, and this is the key difference between Booking and other OTAs, is we've never set prices. We never even used price in the algorithm as a determinant of where you arrive. It's not about that. What we will do is we will give you advice to see whether you're actually competitive with your competitive set.
Because your contract specifically says that you can't sell your rooms for less than with Booking, yeah?
Can with other OTAs, but not on my own Booking engine.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can sell at lower prices on other OTAs, but not on your own Book Direct website.
I only deal with that.
Yeah.
So I'm not asking you to sort of look into a crystal ball and say what would happen necessarily, but that is what's happening in Europe, as I understand this. That has potential to find its way over here, and that would change the relationship.
I think it would do. But I have to say that's the bit of the question I can't answer because I don't have a crystal ball. But to me, it logically doesn't make sense to allow our own website to be undercut by brand.com, because that's not what we're here to do. It may be what other OTAs are there to do, and they may not care about pricing. Believe me, I've seen so many situations where some are on Meta or just out there. Your own websites are being undercut by people who are fiddling around with taxes, with fees, with exchange rates. And I think that's appalling. I think it's really appalling that someone would actually be a partner and allow that to happen. And I can assure you that doesn't happen on Booking because you set the prices.
Other panellists on the price parity issue?
I think I'm slightly thin ice there, just saying. Anyway, this is only going to work with price parity. We don't want to pay the commission. No one wants to pay this massive marketing overhead. But look, let's face it. Over the next 10 years, inbound travel is going to double. It's going to go from about 21 billion to 54 billion. That's all going to be people coming to this country. If you want an aggregated demand driver to exist, you're going to have to pay for it. That's the truth of it. And we have to face that as an industry. Now, either we do what we've done, which is roll over and have our tummies tickled and let people like this come along and take it all away, or we look at roomkey.com and cry. Ultimately, what we've got is this. And I think while we've got this and we're using it and we don't have an alternative, we have to basically accept some fairly clear rules. As I say, for me, the dividing line has come with this kind of who owns the customer debate, shall we say. I'm happy to pay you for marketing. I think it's fair. Your journey towards customer ownership, for me, feels like overstepping the mark.
Interesting. And it's incremental. It's getting it so the relationship's mostly incremental business, isn't it? That's the critical piece. I mean, do either of you two want to come in?
I think in terms of commission, I agree and I disagree. I agree if somebody is sitting there in Rome and they're looking to go to Kendal or looking to go to the Lake District and they do a search and Booking.com win that customer for you, it's justified. If a customer in the UK searches for you by name and Booking.com appear at the very top, where they've brand jacked essentially, that I don't agree with that. I have a pretty big problem with that, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I think that, look, whatever industry you're in, there are people who have invested millions into where these guys are, and they've taken the market. I think the security thing, we beg to differ on that in a way, but that's your rules and everything. In terms of parity, I think you've got to make it fair. I'm with Brian. I think where you also overstep the mark, if I can say this, is that we could type in any hotel, in any browser, in any search engine, and whatever that hotel name that is, Booking.com is either number 1 or 2, and the poor old hotel owner is, maybe they've done well with their optimization and they're there, but they're 3 or 4 down. Google's not in the room, but Google have made it very difficult for the user, for the surfer, to say, well, that's a paid ad. They don't know that. And so you are, in a way, I think, stealing for what is actually that hotel's, should be that hotel's direct booking.
It's interesting. I mean, looking at this as as a journalist and looking at in terms of other industries and other sectors as it's evolved in terms of retail price maintenance and so forth, what's contractually there and what actually happens in reality in the market, regardless of the contracts, I think the market power is such that you're going to have to play the game with Booking.com, because even if it's outlawed, the price parity clause, which it does look like it is being in probably there's about a dozen jurisdictions in Europe at the moment where there's litigation. You look at the SEC filings of Priceline, you'll see all the lawsuits, and it's a great wad of them actually. They're ongoing at the moment, but the reality is the market power, they hold the power, and if you want to use them, and if you don't want to end up on page 93 of the list of hotels, you're going to have to play by rules that they're setting, and I think it's very difficult. And this is a $65 billion market cap company. This is a company which is paying over $2 billion US dollars a year in terms of marketing spend, and that's far more, despite the number we heard yesterday in terms of what IHG is spending. In terms of above the line and digital marketing spend, IHG's 200 million. It's just absolutely dwarfed by what the likes of Priceline are spending, and it's such, you've got to work out a relationship with them, and they hold the whip hand in this, and it's a difficult one. Questions?
Keith Povar, guest-centric booking engine channel management solutions. Julie, it seems to me that obviously Booking.com are here, gloves are off, yes, the gloves are, yeah. Okay, the point is that Booking.com are here, they are going to stay. They're too big for us to fight against in terms of hoteliers to fight against. They are part and parcel of the industry, a necessary evil, dare I say it without trying to be rude, but part and parcel that we have to accept. So, hotels accept that they work with Booking.com, fantastic in their marketing and bringing in extra business. Surely, isn't it time that the hotels step up their game to try and match what Booking.com, in other words, on your booking engine? So rather than you're paying out your 15-18% commissions, why not give some added value to match that 15-18% and keep you and protect your reservations online directly on your own site?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's 1,000 things hoteliers can do, and I come back to the technology point actually, that aren't about fabulous, sophisticated technology. They're kind of pretty analog, actually. Adding value, talking to people, being creative around the edges. And for me, an absolutely massive cardinal sin is to allow a customer to come to you twice via an OTA. What a stupid thing to do, Have a conversation with them. Really, it's just simple stuff. And there's 1,000 ways you can talk to them now. And it's all just about the same thing. It's about having a conversation, whether it's on social media, which is some kind of mystical thing. It's just a way we have conversations with people. Whether it's via email, damn it, whether it's at the reception desk, whether it's at a post-stay survey, whether it's pop-ups on your website, which, by the way, are incredibly cheap to implement. Yeah, live chat, good example. All of these things are perfectly achievable for us to do. They are, and absolutely we should add all sorts of, frilly bits around the edges that just take people over the line and drive your own conversion on your site. Oh, and by the way, for everybody who visits your site on visits Booking.com, because a substantial percentage of them will visit your site as well. What on earth are you doing, letting them go back and book there?
Any other questions? Just pick up on this book direct point. I mean, the industry has at last woken up to this, and really we've just been going in the last couple of years, really pushing it. It was very interesting for me to see Marriott, who I think have been very cute with this, and they had some great sort of viral videos. I don't know if you saw that with the comedian. She was, fantastic. It pays to book direct. Very effective. And what does it do? It really alienates all of the intermediaries they're working with. So the American Association of Travel Agents got really hot under the collar about that and made huge public protests about that Marriott campaign. And that's the problem, isn't it, in reality? You've got to work with these intermediaries, and you're just at risk of, the more successful you are at the book direct, the more you're going to alienate them. So you can't, there's no win in this, is there?
Well, I don't quite agree with that. I think, well, yeah, you can go out there and you can create a disturbing campaign for others and the rest of it and make a noise. I'm a great believer that you can be a lot more clever than that. It depends what you want to do. Yeah, if that was the Marriott stuff, they wanted to do that, they alienated loads, that's fine. But as a small independent or a group of independent, you can be a lot cleverer in terms of your messaging, starting with the basics, get into that relationship. They've brought someone in, Booking.com or whoever's brought that person in. It is crazy that the next booking actually comes from them and it's not actually direct because you're not actually talking to these people. It's absolutely mad. So I think you can be creative, far more creative. You don't have to do these video campaigns or whatever. It depends where you are. It depends on the hotel. What does that chain want to do? Be under the radar. Just go about your business, under the radar, talking to your guests, making them feel great, giving them an experience, find out more about them, find out how they want to be communicated with. We sit today, if you take, I said this before, my generation, quite interesting because we are partly digitalized, but we are very traditional, right, in terms of where we've come from a marketing perspective in growing businesses. Generation below, they are now digitalized. How they go about, how they make decisions on where they're going to go is very different. What they're looking for, the experience, and all these things. So you've got to be you can't be all things. You've got to be able to tailor your message to the target. Well, the first thing is to understand what the target is, right? And there's tools as well. I mean, if you are a hotel that's wanting to build more commercial contracts, there are marvelous tools out there which identify, because it's quite legitimate, IP lookup. You can get all the data on that business that's visited your website. You're able then to be able to contact them. You can link that up to LinkedIn. You can look at who the PAs are. There's loads. There's so much creative stuff you can do. And I think it's down to the hotelier, right? Get off your arse and do something. Don't sit there and have your tummy tickled. There you go.
Is it worth it? I mean, from the point of view, get off your backside and do something. I mean, if you actually work out, you're talking about the cost of sales. Why couldn't you just outsource all of that marketing? Just go to the OTA and do what you do best, which is running the hotel, and not have to fret about any of that. You'd save so much money on that marketing. Actually, if you add it up, 18% doesn't seem too bad, actually, if you're putting everything through the OTA. Why couldn't you do that, Brian?
You could. I think there are so many opportunities. Where digital has gone as an opportunity to grow brand.com it's gone more and more CPC, both in terms of AdWords stealing a larger percentage of traffic, but also meta search. If you look at Google now, meta search is immediately after. So Google Hotel Finder, Google Hotel Ads are immediately after it. So what you were getting organically has started to drop off a cliff. And what's poorly understood is the transposition of CPC to CPA, and it makes hoteliers nervous, because what you see is that you're paying for traffic. You have to know that conversion piece in the middle to understand what that traffic has cost. But if you do a really, really simple thing, and just as Judy said, look at your Google Analytics. Look at how these campaigns perform in terms of conversion rate, conversion value, and then multiply one by the other. So multiply the booking value by the conversion rate by a designed cost of sale. So take 10%. And that tells you how much you can bid per click. It's really, really simple. But there's a nervousness because you're very happy to pay for business on a delivered basis or on a consumed basis of 18%. Whereas you can do this, and I meet hotels all the time that say, well, we tried metasearch and we ended up spending too much, or we tried PPC and it ended up costing us too much. And it's because you did it all on a fixed budget. It's because you gave a marketing agency £5,000 a month and said, what can you deliver? It all needs to be designed from a cost to sale. So the cost to sale and the conversion data, that determines how much you pay for a visitor, either on metasearch channels or in any of the PPC channels, any of the Google AdWords or Bing. And there's a huge opportunity to do it. So I would be vehemently against handing it all over to Booking.com because I think there's just so much opportunity to grow brand.com. We also have to make, to go back to the gentleman's last question, we have to make it so much easier. So understanding the guest, and you're right, you should be shot if you have the same customer returning twice through Booking.com. But you have to make it easy. Hotels are not making it easy. Booking.com make it so simple to make a booking. Whereas I go to a hotel website on a mobile, I'm just off a flight, and I'm filling out 3 pages of information. 16-digit credit card detail, what time are you arriving, what's your flight number. It's ridiculously complex in comparison to how simple it is on Booking.com, where it's 2 or 3 pieces of information, an email address, don't need credit card details. So as a consumer, yes, I'd book with the hotel direct, all things being equal. But don't make it too painful. It really has to be dumbed down to the keep it simple, stupid, I think, methodology. So.
One thing I'd add to that as well, which is understand the lifetime value of your customer, because it's not just the cost of the acquisition the first time, but it's how good you are at getting them to come back to you and what that total package that you're acquiring is. Then you can have a really, really sensible conversation with yourself. How much can I afford to spend on acquiring a customer? And it may well be that actually, you know, you can do a lot more than you think you can.
And Jason, I mean, are we going to see Booking.com hotels? I mean, you're building hotels' websites, aren't you? I mean, you even built the website for a property like the Belfry.
Yeah, well, we bought a company a couple of years ago, Boutique, which has now been rebranded within the group, and building beautiful websites for hotels. And you know, some hotels need it, some don't. There are a lot that actually need it, and it's not about how pretty it looks again. It's about how it's optimized and how it converts. And you know, just another thing that we're doing to support partners. But what I will say is, because I think we're coming towards the end here, is I love the fact that everyone's talking about the customer. And you know, Booking has never and never will stop customers connecting with properties on property. And I think that's a really important thing. And I also support the fact that hotels do it, because I think it's important to do what customers want. It's not for me to say they must come with Booking.com. Listen to the customer, connect with them, and your very first point I think you made was, listen, they come through the door, you know, talk to them. You know, no one at Booking is going to stop you doing that. We don't talk to customers day to day, and I think that's a point I've heard before. But what you can do is you can listen to what customers want, and don't assume that you'll be able to acquire every customer, because those customers that we bring in, by and large, have really enjoyed the fact that they've been able to compare those properties in one place and book in a very simple funnel, like Brian was saying, a very simple couple of clicks and you're at the end. They will be very loyal to Booking.com, but there are customers that come to your website as well and will book, and I think it's fair game for you guys to try and keep those customers. It's what the customer wants, not what we want.
Thank you, Jason, and I think you've been very brave coming into something of a lion's den for you, so we'll make that the last word, and please thank my panel.